But this story doesn't start at brunch. It starts 29 years ago when my parents decided which daughter mattered. My name is Dr. Sophie Bennett and I'm the invisible daughter. Growing up in our Seattle home, I learned early that academic excellence without social charm is just noise in an empty room. My younger sister Blair was everything our parents valued. Bubbly, popular, the kind of girl who made friends effortlessly and turned heads at every school event. I was the one in the science lab after hours, the one who won academic competitions nobody attended, the one whose report cards got a glance and a good job, before the conversation turned back to Blair's latest drama club performance. When Blair barely graduated high school with a 2.3 GPA, my parents threw her a party with a rented venue and a live band. When I graduated valedictorian with a perfect 4.0, they took me to Red Lobster and spent dinner talking about Blair's acceptance to community college. "She's really finding herself," Mom said proudly. "Not everyone needs to be book-smart like you, Sophie. Blair has emotional intelligence." The implication was clear. I had books. Blair had everything else. I went to the University of Washington on a full academic scholarship. Pre-med. I worked in research labs, volunteered at hospitals, studied until my eyes burned. I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in molecular biology. My parents came to graduation, took a few photos and left early because Blair had a situation. Her boyfriend had ghosted her and she needed emotional support. I stood alone in my cap and gown watching other families celebrate, and told myself achievement was enough. I didn't need external validation. Medical school nearly broke me. Johns Hopkins, one of the best in the country. I took out loans, worked overnight shifts as an EMT, survived on 4 hours of sleep and determination. I graduated in the top 5% of my class. My parents sent a card that said congratulations with no personal message. Blair, meanwhile, dropped out of community college after 1 semester. She worked retail for a while, then became a wellness influencer, which meant she posted yoga photos on Instagram and sold overpriced supplements. She lived in an apartment my parents paid for, drove a car they bought her, and spent her days at brunch spots and spin classes. What they didn't know was that I'd been helping too. When Blair's credit cards maxed out at $15,000, I paid them off. When she needed emergency dental work and had no insurance, I covered the $6,000 bill. When she got evicted from her trendy Capitol Hill apartment for missing rent, I paid the back rent and the deposit for her new place. Over 6 years, I'd quietly transferred her $73,000. She never acknowledged it. Never said thank you. I never expected her to. That's what I thought family meant. You give without keeping score. After residency, I joined Seattle Medical Center as an attending physician in infectious diseases. But my real passion was research. I spent every spare moment working on antibiotic resistance, publishing papers, presenting at conferences. My work on novel treatment protocols for drug-resistant infections was cited in over 200 academic papers. I became an associate professor at the University of Washington School of Medicine. At 33, I was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, The Lancet, and JAMA. My mother's response when I told her about my Enneagem publication: "That's nice, honey. Did you see Blair's Instagram post? She hit 50,000 followers." I stopped expecting them to care. I learned to carry my victories quietly, like secrets even I wasn't allowed to celebrate. 8 months ago, Blair started dating Dr. James Montgomery. He was a cardiologist at Swedish Medical Center. Handsome, successful, from old Seattle money. Blair couldn't stop talking about him. "He's a doctor," she gushed at Sunday dinner. "A real doctor, not like research stuff. He actually saves lives every day." The implication that my work, my research that was literally developing treatments for infections that killed thousands, wasn't real medicine made my jaw tighten. But I said nothing. Finally, Mom said, beaming, "Blair's found someone accomplished. Someone with real status." Dad nodded approvingly. About time she settled down with a professional. I was sitting right there. A physician. A researcher. A professor. But I was invisible as always. Over the following months, I heard endless details about James. How he'd taken Blair to the San Juan Islands. How he'd introduced her to the chief of cardiology. How he'd proposed with a ring that cost more than I made in 3 months. The engagement party was set for late January. A lavish affair at the Seattle Yacht Club with catering from the city's best restaurants. I received my invitation in the mail. Embossed. Formal. Dr. Sophie Bennett and guest written in calligraphy. Then guest felt like mockery. I hadn't dated seriously in years. My work consumed me. I had no guest to bring. January arrived with typical Seattle rain, gray, persistent, cold. The yacht club overlooked Portage Bay, all floor-to-ceiling windows and polished wood and the kind of quiet wealth that doesn't need to announce itself. 53 people were invited. Extended family, Blair's influencer friends, family friends, my parents' country club crowd. And James would be there, of course. Meeting the extended family for the first time. I drove from my Fremont apartment in my 10-year-old Honda Civic, dressed in a simple black dress I'd owned for 5 years. Nothing flashy. Nothing that would draw attention. I'd perfected the art of fading into backgrounds. The yacht club was already buzzing when I arrived. Champagne flowed. A jazz trio played softly in the corner. Tables were set with white linens and arrangements of orchids and ranunculus. Everything looked like it belonged in a magazine. Blair stood at the center of it all in a cream-colored dress that probably cost what I spent on rent. James beside her in a perfectly tailored navy suit. They looked like they'd been photoshopped, perfect, polished, untouchable. I slipped in quietly, found my place card at a table near the back with distant cousins, and settled in for what I knew would be a long afternoon of being invisible. Sophie. My mother's voice cut through the conversations, artificially bright. Come say hello to James properly. I turned. Every eye in the room shifted toward me. I felt the familiar weight of unwanted attention. I walked over. James extended his hand, his smile professional and warm. Sophie, it's great to finally meet you. Blair talks about you. I shook his hand, wondering what exactly Blair had said. Nice to meet you too. James is chief of cardiology at Swedish, Blair said, her voice carrying that edge it always had when she wanted to make sure I knew she'd landed someone impressive. One of the youngest ever appointed. Congratulations, I said neutrally. He tilted his head slightly, studying my face. Sophie Bennett, your name sounds really familiar. Have we met at a medical conference or something? Before I could answer, Blair laughed, that bright, performative laugh that always preceded something cruel. Sophie? No, she's not that kind of doctor. He does research stuff. Nothing hands-on. Research is still medicine, James said mildly. Sure, but it's not like saving actual patients, Blair said. She turned to the growing crowd around us. Sophie's always been more of a behind-the-scenes person. Not exactly accomplished in the traditional sense. The words landed like a slap. I felt my mother's hand on my shoulder, that dismissive pat that always accompanied her public assessments of me. Sophie's always been the quiet one, Mom said. Very internal. Not driven like Blair. She's still trying to find her path, really. I could have corrected her. I could have said I'd found my path years ago. Said I stayed silent. Directionless is how we usually describe it, Dad added with a chuckle, appearing beside us with a champagne flute. Still figuring things out. Not everyone blooms early like Blair. 53 people were watching now. I could feel their eyes, their judgment, their pity for the older sister who hadn't measured up. James's brow furrowed. He pulled out his phone. Sophie Bennett, you said you do research? Yes, I said quietly. Blair rolled her eyes. It's not a big deal, James. He works in a lab. It's fine for her, but it's not exactly. Wait, James interrupted, his eyes on his phone screen. His expression changed completely. Dr. Sophie Bennett from UW Medicine? I didn't answer. My heart started beating faster. He scrolled, his face shifting from confusion to shock. You published in the New England Journal of Medicine? Your work on carbapenem-resistant Enterobacteriaceae treatment protocols. Yes. I cited your research in a paper last year. He looked up, his eyes wide. You're that Dr. Bennett? The room had gone completely silent. Even the jazz trio seemed quieter. I don't understand, Blair said, her voice suddenly small. What are you talking about? James turned his phone around, showing her the screen. Your sister is one of the leading researchers in infectious disease treatment. She's published over 40 peer-reviewed papers. She's an associate professor at UW. She's presented at international conferences. He kept scrolling. She received the NIH Director's Award for her antimicrobial resistance research. Mom's face had gone white. Dad's champagne flute stopped halfway to his mouth. But she said, Blair stammered. You all said she was still figuring things out. I never said that, I said quietly. You all did. James looked at me, then at Blair, then at my parents. Something cold settled over his features. You told me Sophie was struggling to find direction. You said she was the underachieving sister. She is, Blair started. She has a medical degree from Johns Hopkins, James said, his voice sharp now. She's published in the most prestigious medical journals in the world. Her research is literally saving lives by developing new treatment protocols for drug-resistant infections. He looked at Blair. What exactly have you accomplished? Blair's eyes filled with tears. That's not fair. What's not fair? James's voice was ice. What's not fair is you lying about your sister. What's not fair is your entire family diminishing her achievements while calling her directionless. We didn't lie, Mom protested. You just what? James turned to face my mother. You called a published researcher, a physician, a professor directionless? In front of your entire family? I reached into my purse, the practical leather bag I'd carried for years, and pulled out my phone, opened my professional website, walked over to James and handed it to him. My publications, I said. My CV. My research lab. In case you want to verify. He scrolled through it, his jaw tightening with each line. Then he handed the phone to Blair. She looked at the screen. Her face crumpled as she scrolled past the university faculty page, the research grants totaling over $2 million, the awards, the publications, the conference presentations. I didn't know, she whispered. You never asked, I said. You never told me. I tried. Multiple times. You weren't interested. I turned to my parents. None of you were. Dad found his voice. Now Sophie, you're being dramatic. We've always supported you. I pulled out another document from my purse. I'd brought it because some part of me knew this moment would come. Bank statements. Highlighted transfers. Support. I placed them on the nearest table. I've given Blair $73,000 over 6 years. Credit cards. Rent. Dental work. Emergency loans. I've paid for Mom and Dad's property taxes for the last 3 years. Another $31,000. I pulled out another page. And I did it while paying off $240,000 in medical school loans. By myself. With no help from anyone. James picked up the documents. Read them. His expression went from shock to something that looked like disgust. You've been supporting your family, he said quietly. While they called you directionless. Yes. He turned to Blair. His voice was very calm, very controlled. What else did you lie about? I didn't lie. Blair's mascara was running now. I just didn't know. They never told me Sophie was successful. Your sister is an associate professor at a major research university, James said. You never thought to Google her? To ask about her work? To show even basic interest in her life? Blair opened her mouth. Closed it. No words came. James looked at my parents. You told me Blair was the accomplished daughter. The one who'd really made something of herself. She has, Mom said weakly. She's built an entire brand. She sells supplements on Instagram, James said flatly. While her sister develops treatments for antibiotic-resistant infections that kill 35,000 Americans every year. He pulled something from his pocket. The engagement ring. A massive diamond that caught the gray Seattle light from the windows. He placed it on the table next to my bank statements. I can't do this, he said quietly. James, please. Blair reached for his arm. He pulled away gently but firmly. I can't marry into a family that treats brilliance like it's something to be ashamed of. That calls achievement directionless, because it doesn't fit their narrow definition of success. We can work through this, Blair pleaded. No. He looked at her and there was something almost sad in his expression. Because this isn't about one misunderstanding. This is about values. About respect. About truth. He paused. You built our entire relationship on presenting yourself as the successful sister. But the truth is, you've accomplished nothing while standing on your sister's silent support. He turned to me. Dr. Bennett, I apologize. Your family grossly misrepresented you. Your work is remarkable. The medical community is lucky to have you. Thank you, I said quietly. He walked out. The door closed behind him with a soft click that echoed like thunder in the silent room. 53 people stood in absolute suffocating silence. Blair's sobs broke it first. "Sophie, how could you? You've ruined my life." I answered questions honestly, I said. "That's all. You could have stayed quiet. You could have let me have this one thing. You had everything," I said, my voice steady. "Every moment of attention. Every ounce of pride. Every celebration. You had it all while I stayed invisible. I'm done staying invisible." Mom stepped forward, her face twisted with anger. "You're being selfish. Family doesn't tear each other down. Family doesn't lie about each other," I said. "Family doesn't call each other directionless while taking their money. Family doesn't erase each other's achievements because they're inconvenient to the narrative." I gathered my phone, my documents. "Put them back in my purse." "Where are you going?" Dad demanded. "Home. To my directionless life." I pulled on my coat. "Where I'll continue my research, teach my students, publish my work, and save actual lives. All without your acknowledgement. Just like I've been doing for years." I walked out into the Seattle rain, leaving behind the yacht club, the champagne, the family that never saw me. That night, my phone exploded with messages. Mom calling me cruel. Dad saying I'd always been jealous of Blair. Relatives taking sides. Blair sending desperate texts begging me to call James and fix this. I blocked them all. 3 days later, an email from James appeared in my inbox. "Dr. Bennett, I did more research on your work. It's extraordinary. Your family's inability to recognize your contributions says everything about them and nothing about you. Thank you for your honesty. It saved me from a profound mistake. Wishing you continued success in your vital research." I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. 2 weeks later, I received notification that my research grant had been renewed. $800,000 for the next 3 years. My lab would continue developing new treatment protocols that would help patients around the world. My parents never called to congratulate me. Here's what I learned at that engagement brunch. Some families need you to be small because your success exposes their shallow values. They need you to be directionless so they can feel superior. They need you to fail so their favorites shine brighter. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply exist in your truth. Not apologize for it. Not hide it. Just be exactly who you are and let the people who can't handle it fall away. I didn't destroy Blair's engagement. Her lies did. Her inability to see beyond herself did. My parents' years of dismissing real achievement in favor of Instagram followers did. I just stopped pretending it was okay. If you've ever been called directionless while quietly achieving greatness, if you've been dismissed by people who should celebrate you, if you've carried your victories in silence while others took credit, know this. Your silence doesn't protect them. It just teaches them how small they can make you. The truth will always find its way out. The only question is whether you'll be the one to speak it, or whether you'll let others keep writing a false story about your life. I chose truth. I chose myself. And that's not selfish. That's survival. Sometimes all it takes is one person asking the right question. One Google search. One moment of someone actually seeing you. And everything built on lies collapses. Silence.